So I'll suggest that we start, even though some people are still coming in, because we want to respect time. And being Swiss, I feel uncomfortable once we're outside the normal schedule. So hello, everyone. I'm Philip Jaffe, and I'm a current member of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. And my fantastic co-moderator is Angelina. And Angelina, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll get going on more substance.
Hi everyone, my name is Angelina. I'm originally from Moldova and I'm an activist for human rights. And specifically for this Congress, I was a part of Youth and Children's Advisory Committee, and I'm actually honored to be present here with another member, Asil. And Asil, why don't you present yourself?
Is this working? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Asil. I'm originally from Palestine, so this topic really means a lot to me. And I'm also part of the Child and Youth Advisory Committee here with Angelina. My advocacy focuses more on education equality, specifically for refugees.
Thank you, Asil. So I'm just going to give you a real quick idea of the run of the show. So we're going to have 2 rounds of questions. We're going to change it a little bit. So the first round will be addressing justice for children in contexts of armed conflict and insecurity. And the second round will be on preventing future violence and strengthening accountability. And you will meet all the panelists as we go along. The overarching idea is to identify strategies to end impunity, strengthen protection mechanisms, and rethink justice systems to meet the needs of children in crisis situations. I wanted to start off by being a little bit provocative and telling you that there's a bit of a paradox, because I wish you were not the audience. Obviously, I'm glad that you're here, but you are already converted. You are friends of children's rights. You are child-friendly. And if you're not, you should leave the room. What we're trying to do is to talk about things that should address an audience that doesn't listen to the issues that we are going to be discussing, who need to be convinced to change their way, introduce political will, etc. But again, if we can re-energize each other, that's already a big step forward. And we've heard about all the crises that children are going through and the conflicts that are happening around the world, and I'm not going to go into a long list of them. You all know which they are, and you should also know that these past 2 years, it's in recent times when most conflicts have happened on our globe. So I hope you'll be inspired and energized, and I am so happy to perform minimal duties and to hand over to Angelina for most of the rest of the session.
Perfect. So we are going to start our first segment. And I'm glad to present you Ermin Kembo, who is a member of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of Children. And actually, Ermin, we would like to ask you to explain what is the status of children associated with armed forces and armed groups before the justice system?
Merci, Angelina. Répondre à cette question, c'est aller au-devant d'une aventure ambiguë. C'est aller au-devant d'une aventure ambiguë.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's a bit ambiguous, really. It's a bit of a weird question, because there are several aspects to take into account, and doubts actually that I have, and they should be taken into account. Number one, first we need to determine whether these children are considered as victims or perpetrators of a crime, and there's no clear answer to this, because often these children are indeed seen as victims, but there are exceptions to this rule. And when they are seen as perpetrators, they are, in a way, introduced into the justice system. But this lack of clarity has an impact on a number of different things, including the legislations of different countries. In practice, there is a global tendency to consider these boys and girls as victims. That is the global tendency, and when they are considered as victims, of course, they are entitled to a certain degree of assistance, to be helped once they go back to living in society. But at the same time, I think there is a security approach to take into account as well. Sometimes crimes have been committed, and sometimes we need to respond to that situation, and that's where the justice system needs to step up. Now, we have here several different NGOs. We have UNICEF, and they've shared with us some of the newest protocols, and they know that sometimes these children are detained and introduced into the justice system. But again, therein lies the ambiguity I was talking about earlier, because the status of these children is unclear. It's ambiguous in this context of, armed conflict, and that's really what I can say to answer your question. There's not much more I can safely say. So how do we address this issue? Well, by doing some prevention, or by being repressive. But there are security concerns that are often prioritized, and that should be taken into account. That's all I wanted to say for now. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you, Armin, for your wonderful remarks, and I think it's very important to take in consideration what you have actually elaborated on. And I would like to continue with actually presenting and at the same time asking Alexandra Martins, who is the coordinator at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime of the Global Program to End Violence Against Children. And based on your professional experience, would you kindly answer one question? What are the main challenges that have to be overcome to advance accountability and ensure children are better protected in context of insecurity? Thank you.
Thank you, Angeline. Good afternoon to you all. I think that there are numerous challenges of different nature, but I would like to mention 3 of them. The first one, I believe there is a lack of systemic understanding of the impact of crime, violence, and conflict on children's well-being and child rights overall. I think that in the way we think, we chopped realities into bits. We try to deal with elements or parts of the problem, but we haven't been good enough in bringing together these different elements to try to identify solutions that are sustainable, and to try also to understand what are the root causes of the problem. As a consequence, 2 consequences. The first one is that we operate in silos, and we have different agendas. And there is the agenda children and armed conflict, and the agenda violence against children, and the agenda justice for children. So we operate on the basis of our mandates and what our own institutions have to deal with. Another consequence of this first challenge is the fact that the justice systems quite often deal with problems that are not of a justice nature, and you name it: structural violence, marginalization, social exclusion. I think that we also lack the understanding of the impact of crime, violence, and conflict on children, which goes beyond children who are victims of this phenomenon, but actually impacts society at large. The second challenge I would like to mention is that there is a global trend to adopt punitive and securitized approaches for dealing with crime and violence in both conflict and non-conflict settings. This is a trend where human rights and international humanitarian law are often ignored, a trend where profit and security interests prevail over child rights. So too often, the responses are framed by implying a choice. Either security is enhanced or child rights are upheld. And there is also a pervasive narrative that security cannot be reconciled with upholding child rights. There are serious consequences of this narrative on children, because they are victims when they are in contact with criminal groups, and they are victims when they are perceived by systems dealing with them as a threat. So the lack of understanding, of a systemic understanding of the problem, number one, and second, of security-driven responses, leads to the third and last challenge I would like to mention, which is normalization of violence. I ask myself, can it be normal that we witness killing and atrocities against children on a daily basis and just remain passive to what's going on? Does it feel normal to all of us what's going on? So the truth is that the normalization to violence, which is fostered by social media, by misinformation, by disinformation, is deeply altering social norms, attitudes, and behavior, and is also shaping the way future generations deal and understand crime and violence.
Well, that's not good news if we're normalizing to that extent, and how do we inject children's rights more into the thinking and avoid that outcome that you're predicting? I hope we'll be able to reverse that in part with this conference and going forward. And you'll have a chance to reverse that in your second round of questions. So at this point, I would also like to switch to Renate Winter, who many of you know. She was the chair of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, my chair for a little bit. The Committee on the Rights of the Child. She's a former judge for children, but also was in charge of the Special Court for Sierra Leone. And over the years, Renate, I know you've made special pleas and gave a lot of attention to the plight of girls and girl rights in particular. So could you address the question of access to justice for survivors, and in particularly child soldiers who encounter specific issues when they are in a reintegration process?
You are not going to be happy with me either, because I am reinforcing what Alexandra has said, and this is no fun. I do think that everyone knows that it is no fun whatsoever to be a child soldier, but it is nothing against the plight of a girl child soldier. It's a double burden, as always. And I am asking myself, what kind of threat, because you spoke of threats, what kind of threat can a girl, child soldier, age 14, with 2 children from the enemy be for society? I would like to know that. I have never found any kind of reason for that. Usually a girl, child soldier has either run away from at home because of mistreatment at home, or has been abducted, which is also no fun, as you can imagine. If this girl is good looking and nice, then she has maybe had the chance to be given to one man as a bushwife. If she was not so nice, not so obedient, then she was given to all of them. I do not need to tell what that means. In many cases, these girls became pregnant. Again, when they were lucky, they had an abortion. When they were not lucky, they had to have the child, and on top of it, they got the child in marching. And if in marching they gave birth and they could not march, then they were left behind and eaten by the jungle together with the newborn. That was more or less the life of a girl soldier. Some of them had weapons, most of them had none, because they didn't need one, being a servant anyway. Because women usually are more resilient than men, we have survivors of this situation. They came back with children, the so-called children of hate, because they are the children of the enemy. This enemy father and the family of this enemy father did not accept, if ever they would find him, would not accept neither the woman nor the children. The family of the girl will not accept neither the girl nor the children of the girl, because the girl is dirty, tainted, cannot be sold into marriage, cannot even be married off. Nobody is going to take such a girl. So what is the situation for the girl? The only one that is provided for them, this is prostitution, and that's it. That is the situation of the survivor. And I am asking, where is justice in this regard? Where is financial assistance to victims? Because these are victims. And if there is financial assistance, who is going to pay for it? The state has no money. The state has nothing to do with it. The father and the family is not available. The family of the girl is not available, or is not willing to do anything. Where is the access for the girl, first of all, with no knowledge, with no education, with no standing, because she is just only a girl? And where is the problem of disarmament? If a boy disarms, he gives the weapon and he gets a tool. This tool, most of the time, is good for nothing, because the boy doesn't know what to do with it, but at least he can sell it. If a girl had a weapon, and most of them had none, the boys are taking the weapon from the girl, and the girl has no chance to ask back, because she is not to be seen with a weapon, because the small little chance that she should have will be gone if she is seen with a weapon. So not even a tool that she cannot use she would get. She gets nothing. So can we tell me how we should solve the problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Renate. You're always very evocative and in describing the lived experience of these children, and indeed, where is the accountability and how to bring justice to them and with them is a huge challenge. I would like now to give the floor to Akram Al-Kateb, who is the Attorney General for the State of Palestine, which, as everybody knows, is in the heart of a conflict currently. And he has chosen to make a statement, so I will not even pretend to ask a pertinent question. So, Mr. Al-Kateb, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حضرات السيدات والسادة.
In the name of God, the merciful, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear participants, good evening, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here at this Congress, gathering participants from all over the world. We're here in this particular session to talk about accountability, justice for children in conflict zones. This is, ladies and gentlemen, a historic time. It is a time when it falls on our shoulders to do whatever we can to protect children the world over. It is unacceptable as human beings, as lawyers, to talk about justice for children without looking up to, without taking stock of what is going on in Palestine, a barbaric thing barbaric. In Palestine, we have been suffering from the longest occupation in our recent history, and children are murdered intentionally in their mother's arms. Their families are detained, arrested. Children and families are brought before courts without any reason to do it. They are deprived of an education, they are deprived of their childhood, they are deprived of their rights of a safe, secure life. These are the lives of Palestinian children. The lives of Palestinian children have become a mere struggle for survival. And to face up to this task, the Palestinian National Prosecutor is working along two lines. Number one, we're documenting the crimes committed by Israelis perpetrated against children based on international law. In Palestine, we are experiencing a genocide. More than 25,000 children have been murdered in the Gaza Strip. Almost 5,000 children are still buried under the rubble. About 10,000 of them are wounded, a lot of them maimed. They no longer have a future. They have scars which they'll have to live with for their whole lives. And these are not just numbers. These children have names, histories, stories to tell in the face of the silence in the rest of the world. Blocking aid is absolutely inhumane. We've seen that. We've seen it on TV. People are starving to death. Many have become skeletons. Bags of grain are shredded apart and used to wrap up the bodies of young children who have died. There are more than 160 children who were wounded looking for food recently. More than 400 Palestinian children currently imprisoned in Israel under extremely undignified, unfair circumstances. They were imprisoned without a fair trial, and these children can't even get in touch with their families or their lawyers, much less. A lot of them are sick, ill, and they are imprisoned, kept in jail until they die. And no international organization is doing anything to protect them. A lot of children have survived all of this. But even when they do survive it, they no longer have access to education. Thousands of children have been deprived of this. More than 360 schools were destroyed, and the remaining ones have been shuttered down. The last two UNRWA schools on the West Bank were recently closed down, meaning that almost 1,000 students are left without an education. Ladies and gentlemen, these are crimes perpetrated against the people of Palestine. And what's worse is that all of this is being done against a people which, in theory, should be protected by the Geneva Convention, should have human rights. And this, some of these agreements protecting people throughout the world date back to 1989, and these agreements have been ratified by both Palestine and Israel. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a set of international war crimes, and this is shedding light on the real problem. The real problem has never been a lack of rules, a lack of regulation. The real problem has always been a lack of implementation of these conventions, of these agreements. Israel has been given free rein to do whatever it pleases in defiance of its international commitment. Children are being murdered intentionally with malice of forethought. Their homes are being torn down. Their schools and hospitals are being torn down. These are crimes. War crimes against humankind in accordance with the Rome Treaty, the Treaty of Rome. Now, in the face of this situation, we from the Palestinian Prosecutor's Office, again, are documenting all of this, all the acts of barbarism committed against children, homicides, murders, starvation. We've opened case files on each and every one of these crimes, and we are collecting evidence, collaborating with all justice-related international organizations to shed light on these crimes. We have formed partnerships with all human rights associations, both international and Palestinian, to again bring the perpetrators of this crime to justice. And even though, of course, we have limited resources in Palestine, and there is little we can do to ensure accountability, we will keep on working. But this lack of accountability is a huge obstacle, and it impairs Palestinian children's right to justice. The international community is silent in this, and this is not only a failure from a legal point of view, it's almost a conspiracy. It feels like it. So allow me to finish off by saying a few words for children in Palestine. I've spoken a lot just now, and I'm sorry, thank you for bearing with me, but I think the Palestinian children deserve to be listened to in such an important place as this forum, which deals with children's rights. And so finally, to conclude, in spite of all the challenges that we are facing, the protection of children, the consolidation of justice systems to their benefit is a national ethical priority for us in Palestine. We believe that justice cannot be achieved unless the perpetrators of these acts of barbarism are brought to justice. The rights of children should be protected under all circumstances, but especially during an armed conflict. Let's lend a helping hand to all of our international partners so that we can truly have worldwide solidarity for Palestinian children, so that Palestinian justice entities, including the National Prosecutor's Office, are truly supported. Justice for children is not optional. It is a commitment. Thank you very much for your attention.
So we often say that the Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 6, we often say that all articles are equal in the Convention. But Article 6, which talks of a right to life, survival, and development, really says it all with regard to the children that Mr. Alcatreb was talking about. And we can't let impunity win in these circumstances. And which brings me, Alexandra, to a really difficult aspect of the topic that we're addressing. Impunity is apparently, for the time being, winning. How do we bring in accountability at some point, or how do we make sure that people know that accountability will occur in situations of conflict at some point? The whole prevention aspect of things.
Thank you, Philippe. I think there are many opportunities, and I will start by saying that I failed for many years as someone who works in justice reform, because I was looking through justice through the lenses of law. And today I realize that's not enough. There is a component which is so key, and this is trauma. The moment I started working with neuroscientists and I understood more, which is not my area of work, but I understood more about trauma, I have different lenses to understand why systems overall are stuck. And when I'm talking about systems, I'm talking about the inertia of taking actions when we are witnessing so many atrocities around the world. So this Congress is about justice. If we do not integrate, in my humble opinion, trauma-informed approaches and trauma-informed care to understand the nature of human beings, and I go back to normalization to violence, my brain is not connected to my heart if I witness this and become accomplice doing absolutely nothing. Now, justice systems are stuck, institutions are stuck, human beings are stuck. Something needs to change. So we need to change, first of all, understanding what is this problem and starting changing the narrative. We can't go on basically portraying that there is a dichotomy between security and human rights. How do we do that? Framing the issue not only through the lenses of child rights or law, but framing the issues as if we don't change and understand this as a humanitarian, a development, a security, a peace-related issue, and connected the dots of different areas of knowledge, we will never advance anything. So again, I go back to overcome the fragmented and siloed approaches, Philippe. I think this is key. About integrating trauma-informed policies and trauma-informed approaches within justice reform. But most importantly, revisiting what is justice. If I go back to the communities and if I really rely on those who are survivors and victims of violence and crime all over the world, I will understand better what are their needs, and I will understand better what are the root causes of the problem. I will refrain from understanding the problem from a top-down approach. I will refrain from my vested interest or the vested interest of my institution, of my area of work, of my fundraising purposes in identifying problems and reinventing the wheel rather than relying on those that understand truly what are the real problems. I just would like to mention something. Yesterday, as one of the satellite events of this Congress, a group of 32 youth peace champions in Nigeria launched a youth call to action to end violence against children. They are talking particularly about the recruitment of children by Boko Haram in the northeast of the country. They have launched a call to action. Over 1,500 young people have adhered to this call to action, where they are basically recognizing that children who are victims of these atrocities have to be treated and considered primarily as victims, where they recognize that they are the agents in their own protection, where they recognize that without reintegration and healing of communities, and not only of justice professionals as well, because I do have my bias, I do have my hates, and if I don't work on myself, on connecting my brain to my heart, I won't be able to act. I will continue stuck in my individual system.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, that echoes a lot with me, and I'm sure with a lot of you. We have our work cut out, and listening to the last interventions, I'm thinking in many ways it's déjà vu all over again, to use the expression. I mean, at the same time when we were emerging from World War I, the war that ended all wars, we discover children's rights. And so to hear initiatives, particularly from young people, in the face of everything that's going on, is not only reassuring, I think that is what we're hoping for to a greater degree, and we need to support those initiatives. Renate, I'm going to come back to you if it's okay, because how do we bring justice? How do the legal frameworks deal with these situations? How do we deal with the perpetrators who are blazingly violating the rights of children in conflict situations?
First of all, there's, according to international law and all the national laws I know, there's nobody above the law. The problem is, how do we get those who are above to the law? And this is not easy, and especially in times of conflict, it's absolutely impossible. If I have heard what is happening now in Palestine, let's see. If I remember what has happened in 15 years of a civil war in Sierra Leone, in other countries where I had to work in the justice system, I would not be a judge if I would allow one of the fighting parties to become judge about the other one. With all respect to what you have said, I would be happy if I would be judge to have you as a prosecutor, but not as a judge. As a judge in the international system, we have to have somebody who is not party, in no way party, to one of the other of the fighting groups. And therefore, we have to have an international court or an international assistance to a court embedded in a national system as possible to deal with those issues. I give you an example. I was working in a country where we had an accused Minister of Defense. The Minister of Defense was accused because he has used children as soldiers. You would say this is a clear-cut case. Is it? First of all, I'm going to give the justice system hand over to the country, a country who does not have laws that go for genocide, that go for crimes against humanity, they go for war crimes, because the justice, the legal part is missing. I cannot give it to that country. No? I cannot give it to one of the parties of an internal conflict, even less of an external conflict. So we have to go for so-called transitional justice. Justice that is going to be developed. But going to be developed does not mean that now we can use it already. Now we have to use somebody from external part. Coming back to my minister. The minister said, I am Minister of Defense. Therefore, I have to defend my country with all means that I have. And I do not have enough soldiers. According to the tradition of my country, a boy who is over puberty is ready for fighting. And I took them. I had nobody else. Okay, who is going to give justice in this regard? Anyone from his group? No. Anyone from another group? No. Anyone from local justice? No. We have only to have, and therefore we have to strengthen international justice, now to come to see, was it possible for that person to act differently? Was it not possible? Does he have the possibility to accept children as soldiers, under which circumstances, and so on? All these very, for you, most probably boring situations and boring questions, the justice system has to answer. Otherwise, we do not have justice, we have revenge. And revenge has never, ever solved any problem. Never. And if we have to have justice, then we have to have justice for each and everyone. It's not a question that we have to give an excuse to a minister of defense. No. What we have to see is, and to look into is, what his possibility when he tells, but I did not know what my soldiers have done. Is this an excuse according to international law? It's not. Because as a leader, you have the responsibility, not only the privileges. And if you have the responsibility, then you have to know. And if you do not know, then you're either stepping down or you have to take the responsibility because you have not looked into the right places. This is what we can do to bring people, to answer your question, to bring people to accountability. It's not the internal part that could do it. It's only the external part. And it is not to mix into the sovereignty of a country. This is not the case. It is assistance to get justice to solve a problem that otherwise cannot be solved. And if I think about my girl soldiers, then I do not hesitate to go and to try to do justice as good as I can in an international way. Thank you.
Thank you, Renate. I think it was a very powerful answer on how complex the justice is and how it is very important to bring in different perspectives and especially local context, but at the same time to have someone as international law who could have like both sides of the story. And elaborating on this, I'm coming back to Ermin, and I have a quite complex and tough question for you. Could you please reflect on securing reparations for victims of crisis situations, and what is the effectiveness of these reparations on victims and the communities that they return to?
Oh, thank you. On reparation and its effectiveness, I think when a victim seeks justice, he or her also seek for reparation. And what are we seeing nowadays? We are seeing that justice may more or less try to hold perpetrators accountable. And at the end, you have a perpetrator which is insolvent. What are we doing now? Because more often than not, the option that is chosen by the victims in times of poverty is that victim look for reparation that is financial. And reparation that is financial, it entails that somebody takes that into account. And what has been the trends? We've noticed that the various funds that have been put in place sometimes are not funded. The fund for victim for ICC, the fund for victim of Eastern Habre, but also the fund for victim for the Central African special courts. So at the end, what has the victim got at the end of all this process? The process which is lengthy, the process which is at times tiring, the process at the end of which he expects much, but the process which at the end does not give him any hope. So for me, that's the question around the effectiveness of the reparation. So we must think on ways to how to fund the reparation, because we see at times from how the ICC namely have taken this issue on board, that the question of the effectiveness of reparation also helps design the reparatory measures that is being awarded by the court in terms of individual reparation or in terms of collective reparation. Because from Lubanga case to the ongoing case, we saw that there is a shift from individual reparation to more collective reparation, with the explanation that it needs to be funded and somebody needs to respond. So the question is, how do we fund? The example of DRC instituting a fund for victims that would be budgeted. Is it a pathway? It is a pathway, but I think we need to critically think around what we are doing and how we are doing, but also in terms of the practical gains that a victim needs to have at the end of the justice process. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Armin. I think it's very important that you also bring the perspective of victims and injustices that are happening through this process, which we don't really think about, in our daily life. But it's also very important that you mentioned the financial aspect behind it and how local and international institutions kind of visualize it through financial aspects and how they actually think which is important is the state of the victim and how they can bring justice throughout these processes. And we have another intervention, which would be a video one from the Christina Kitsos, the mayor of Geneva. And I would like to bring everyone's attention to it. Thank you.
Do we have it? So Geneva is where children's rights were born 100 years ago with Eglantine Jebb, who famously said that the only international language in the world is a child's cry. And there's a lot of crying going on and a lot of impunity. So, okay. So we're not going to, while you look for it, we're going to skip the video and we're going to go to Asil. So there's no break in the session. And Asil Ibrahim, you made it from Qatar last minute, and we're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
And to hear what you have to share with us.
Thank you. I was also supposed to deliver my intervention over video, but I'm glad that the last minute visa thing worked. But honestly,
you have to turn off your machines here.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise it's going to interfere.
But honestly, when I was preparing, and actually my script really touches on what everybody on the panel has said about the intersectionality, about the impunity and the cherry picking in upholding the international law. So, and I trust everybody in the room knows that we live in a world that claims that children have no place in wars. But at the same time, this world right now has the highest number of ongoing conflicts. According to Geneva Academy, we have more than 110 conflicts ongoing. Some started 50, 70, 80 years ago and still going, and others has recently escalated. And also touching on that, I refuse to be in a panel that says that what happens in Palestine is a conflict, with all due respect. It's a genocide, and I also know that everybody here knows that. So, again, thank you. Thank you. And on that, I also want to say that children are always caught in the middle of the fire of these conflicts because they are targeted deliberately. Specifically in what also was mentioned on the panel, recent trends of targeting children and their safe spaces, whether they were community centers, schools, hospitals, all of them now are a target, and they are not protected from being attacked or bombed. And we have to talk about, when it comes to accountability, the lack of political will is standing in our way of achieving justice. And it's enabling cherry picking when it comes to achieving or upholding the international law, which, and I have to be very honest, as a young person and a representative of young people, creates a lot of anxiety for me because it feels like all of the fancy laws, fancy conventions that were made are now making no sense to me because when it comes to achieving or upholding them, we see no action. But for children, in general, when we are talking about people who are in conflict, we tend to infantilize them. And whether they were in conflict or whether they were refugees, we always think that we know better what is the best solution for them. Because, you know, they are living in a conflict, they are busy, you know, fighting for their life, so let's come with our own made-up solutions that sometimes are not context sensitive and does not make sense or provide any relief for the victims of the conflict. So what I'm here for is just to call again on recognizing the agency of the children in conflict. And when I'm talking about children, we have to recognize that children are fighting not just, you know, like in a war. They are not just fighting the enemy or the one who's bombing them. They are also fighting smaller systems that don't recognize them as full human beings with full will, like the community, sometimes the family. So, and children are very smart, and they recognize sometimes that if they seek justice, they might endanger their families and their communities. So that's why they, you know, refrain from it. So because our children are not isolated and they live within local and smaller communities that might be targeted and harmed if children are advocating for themselves. So in my opinion, in order to achieve any kind of justice, we need to first map out all the resources and work with the communities closely. There are a lot of local youth and children and young people who are living under bombs, and they are living in a lot of conflicts and genocides, but they are still ready and want to work and want to give their full energy and passion into achieving justice. So why not seek them out? Why not work with them? Why do we have to come up with our own solutions while we are living comfortably in our own safe houses, presumably safe for now, and just impose it on them? These people are very ready to sacrifice in order to collaborate and work to achieve any kind of justice. We need to stop just looking at children as feedback collection tools. And we need to stop this tokenistic way of involving them in achieving justice. We need to treat them as real-life collaborators. And there are a lot of successful examples. One of them was mentioned, which is the Sierra Leone after the 2002 civil war. They made deliberate effort through their Truth and Reconciliation Commission to include children. So, and there are also many other examples for successful youth collaboration. So we need to think how we can empower the youth and locally led solutions and support them rather than just force our opinions on people when it comes to justice. And again, I say, please stop with the tokenistic way of involving youth in justice. Please, it's not just about us being in a room or on a panel or just speaking fancily and getting clapped for. It's more about what comes after this panel. Where is our opinions? Where are these opinions going? Are you taking them into consideration in all of the implementation strategies that you have? I acknowledge that the road to justice is not just a quick solution. And specifically when we're talking about conflict and wars and bombing, people are seeking the quick fixes, just any kind of relief from the hardships that they are going through. But when it comes to justice, it's not linear, and it's a long collaborative way. So we need to put children in the center and establish a way for them to share their opinions and seek justice without antagonizing them or stripping them from their communities or dehumanizing them. Thank you.
So as you can see, we found the video. And may I just add that Christina Kitsos would have wanted to be here, and she sent her greetings personally through me, but she sent a video to the organizers. So I'm just going to play it. It's quite short, and I think it's in French.
Ladies and gentlemen, in your official capacities, I extend greetings from the authorities of the city of Geneva. Unfortunately, I'm unable to join you today. The topic that you have chosen is paramount. Children's rights are systematically violated, even today. Their voices are not being heard, and 1 in 6 children experiences violence and lives in situations of war and conflict. In Geneva, we commemorated the centenary of the Geneva Declaration drafted by Églantine Jeb, which led to the Convention on the Rights of the Child much later. This inspired this convention to affirm rights and to consider children as individuals in their own rights and in a supranational manner. But it is clear that much work remains to be done in this area. In the city of Geneva, we have been awarded the UNICEF label, City of Geneva, Friends of Children, and we have been able to develop an action plan with 3 main areas of focus: inclusion, protection, and participation. We are working on these issues across departments, and for us it is essential to be able to take children's voices into account, whether they have a dedicated space for their voices to be heard in different policies or in different projects. So the aim is not only to protect them, but also to ensure that children are real players in their own lives, as well as in the construction of the city of Geneva today and tomorrow. I wish you all a wonderful conference, a fruitful discussion, so that we can move forward for this cause that concerns children and that is so important. Thank you.
Christina. Je lui transmettrai vos applaudissements et en attendant, je donne la parole à...
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to give the floor to Angelina now. But I wanted to thank you anyway for everything you've done for the presentation. Thank you, Patrice.
To conclude today with one thought, but I actually think that what we have discussed today in here should be our constant concern and constant ideas in our minds that many of us in this room cannot really imagine what the children have endured, are enduring, and may sadly continue to endure in the context of wars and conflict, including myself, and the ones who are sitting here today who saw their fear, loss, and many ways in which systems have failed them, not just while their journey, and not only while the conflict, but also arriving in a supposed safety place, refugee camps, and still getting no support. Injustice just follows them. But what we can do is try and ensure that we don't replace the voices of children who can't be here today. We must become the agents who co-create policies and legislations with children to reflect their truths and guarantee their right to protection and justice, and moreover to ensure that their voices are actually presented today. And beyond that, when exiting this room, we should be the ones who act, the ones who truly believe in the world with no wars and conflicts, and the one who believe that justice should be at the core of our system. Thank you.
So, I would just like to give a big round of applause to Akram, to Renate, to Hermine, to Asil, Alexandra, and also to Angelina, and myself.